It's game night, you've got everything ready for your session of D&D, and right before you're due to start, all but one of your players texts you to say, we can't make it tonight, sorry. You really don't want to miss out on playing, and you don't want to let down the one person that actually did turn up.
Please play D&D now.
No!
So you decide to run a one-on-one game. Greetings gamers, I'm Anto, and today we're going to be talking about one-on-one sessions, why they're awesome, how to run them, and some tips to get you started. I've run multiple one-on-one sessions during my current campaign. Sometimes only one player can make it for the evening, or after everyone else has gone home, one player is still left and wants to carry on doing things on their own, or maybe they want to do an extra session and do some stuff outside of the party. All of my one-on-one sessions have been really enjoyable, and I think that's down to a few key points that we're going to go over in today's video. First thing that you want to do when you're running a one-on-one session is tailor your content to the player and to the character. The most important thing to do when you're running a one-on-one session is really tailor your content to that player and to that character. If your player loves horror, then give them a one-on-one session that really heightens the sense of horror and plays on those psychological elements. If the player loves combat, maybe sign them up for a fighting arena and let them take part in some combats. Similarly, if you know the player's favourite aspect of the game isn't combat, maybe give them a much more puzzle or roleplay focused session. Because you're only catering to one person's interest, you can be much more one-sided with the type of gameplay that you deploy. The second thing that you want to do is really focus in on the story and on the narrative. For a lot of players, rolling dice on their own without the group isn't going to be nearly as much fun, so try to focus more on the story that you are telling with this player. If they decide to go to those fighting pits and sign up for some combats, for example, well, introduce them to a variety of different NPCs within the arena. Maybe have them train with an NPC beforehand, get to know some of the people that occupy this arena and really spend the time to develop those interactions before the player has to step out onto the arena's pitch and fight some of these people. My third piece of advice is to really go in on the descriptions to help immerse your player. One-on-one sessions have got a lot more scope for being really descriptive and dramatic. When you've got 6 players at the table, you can't spend the time to narrate every single action that every single one of them takes throughout the evening, because it adds way too much time to the session, especially if you're on a limited time scale anyway. But with a one-on-one session with only one player in front of you, you can really dial in to those descriptions and describe absolutely everything to help pull that player into the world. The fourth thing that I like to do is create lots and lots of tension. Some of my most memorable one-on-one sessions have been exercises in tension. The majority of the session has been building slowly towards this one particular plot point and really heightening that tension for the player. Because you don't have as many players at the table, you can describe every single sight, every sound, every smell that they hear, the feeling of the crunch of bones beneath their feet. Every single aspect of an encounter can be described in depth to really start building the tension for your player. If the player is having a late night rendezvous with an NPC, you can really play on the inherent paranoia that a lot of players have. Maybe you describe the sound of a door opening nearby, and that is going to have a really significant impact on the player. They're here alone with this NPC. Can they trust this NPC? Has the NPC called for some kind of backup? Is that what the sound of the door is? Is there someone coming right now to reinforce this NPC? Is there going to be a combat here? What if there's more than one person coming down the corridor? They can strain, listen for footsteps. What if they don't hear footsteps? What was the sound of the door opening? What is happening? And doing that, describing every single little detail as the events of a session unfold, really builds the tension for the player and can really put them on edge and make them feel palpable tension as you're describing these things. And my final tip for you to take in to a one-on-one session is that the rules are not nearly as important when you've only got one player. I would advise when you only have one player with you to always throw the rules out in favour of something cool and fun if it presents itself. When you have a whole party of players, ignoring rules or throwing them out on the fly can really mess with the balance of an encounter or a combat and can ruin everyone's fun. But I find that with just a one-on-one session, bending the rules, ignoring the rules, breaking the rules here and there can really help add to the session overall for that player. As an example, recently one of my players had a one-on-one session where they descended into the city sewers. They knew that there were some homeless children down here in the sewer, and they knew that there was something in the sewer, even though they didn't know what, and they ended up fighting a fleshy monster in the sewer itself. And during that combat, I did several things that I wouldn't normally do in a combat with an entire party to really help add to the tension and the drama of the combat, make it more interesting for the player, and make the player feel like they were in a really desperate situation. Some of the things that I did included having this monster move through threatened squares without provoking attacks of opportunity, having the monster move then attack then move again, having the monster squeeze through spaces that it wouldn't otherwise have been able to by becoming fleshy and amorphous and slipping through cracks. And at one point the player summoned a dire tiger, and I had this monster become almost like a liquid and force itself down the dire tiger's throat, causing it to explode. There's no basis for this in the rules, but this moment was amazing for the player. They summoned a dire tiger. They thought that they'd regained the upper hand in the combat. The dire tiger had quite a lot of HP, so they thought that's going to be a nice hit point war between me and this monster. I'm safe. I can reassess what's going on here. I can look at my options. I've got some time to breathe. But I didn't want them to have time to breathe, so I had this monster become amorphous and liquid and go down the tiger's throat and blow the tiger up from the inside. It didn't immediately go and attack the player, but that moment of taking what the player thought was safety, flipping it on its head and making the player immediately reassess their situation added a lot of drama to the combat. I didn't want the player to die alone in the sewer, but I absolutely wanted them to feel like they were going to die alone in the sewer. And I think those are two very different things. I didn't want to unbalance the combat to the point where it was unfair on the player, but I definitely wanted them to feel like they were in an unbalanced combat and it was unfair and that they could die at any second, because that heightened the tension and the drama. So I allowed this monster to act outside how it normally would be able to heighten that sense of tension. Now, this character didn't take a single point of damage throughout the entire combat, but I think every single turn they felt like they were one turn away from just being outright killed because of the way this monster was behaving around them. So those are my tips for running a one-on-one session. I really hope that you found this video helpful and it's made you feel more comfortable in running a one-on-one session. If you've run any one-on-one sessions in the past and had good experiences or bad experiences, I'd love to hear them down in the comments below. And if you'd like any advice on specific things on running one-on-one sessions, post them in the comments below and someone will be sure to answer. But until next time, happy gaming. If you're new here and like what you see, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I release new RPG related content every single week. And if you enjoy what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon. You get access to behind the scenes video, early access to the regular videos, exclusive content, and a whole bunch more. And if you want to keep watching, I've got a couple of videos over there that you might enjoy. And until next time, happy gaming.